Is this it? All right, welcome everybody to the Monday, June 7th Finance Administration and Police Subcommittee. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Are there any communications, Irene?
No communications received,
Okay.
Chair.
And as far as attendance, I'm here, and I believe City Manager Kelly is our other voting member this time. And we will move on to public comment. Members of the public may comment on any matter not on this agenda. Please limit comments to 3 minutes. Members of the public may comment on items on the agenda. When the subcommittee considers that item to make a public comment, use your raised hand icon on your smart device or desktop computer, or dial *9 if you are using just your telephone. Irene, do we have any attendees who would wish to address the subcommittee?
No hands are raised at this time, Chair.
Okay, great. I see we have one attendee. Hi, Debbie. If you're the only attendee, you get a personal shout out. So with that, we will move on to approval of the minutes from May 3rd. City Manager, had you had a chance to look at the minutes? They appeared to be in order to me.
I did look at them. They look like they're in order to me as well. I'll make a motion for approval.
And there's a second, and I believe we are all in favor. That makes it easy. So with that, we'll move on to item 5 and current items for discussion. Proposal by R3 Consulting for performance review and RRI adjustment review. And we are not supposed to use acronyms. We're supposed to use English, but I'll let it go this time. So what do you have for us, City Manager?
Okay, well, just for clarification, RRI refers to refuse rate index or indices, which is a specific indices that pertains to the solid waste industry. So the item 5A is a proposal by R3 Consulting Group to really undertake 2 separate but distinct but important tasks. One is a performance review of the franchise agreement between the City of Cloverdale and Recology, and just a little bit of background on the franchise agreement. The franchise agreement was originally executed between the city and Redwood Empire Disposal, also known as the RADO Group, and the acronym for Redwood Empire Disposal is RED. That the RED was the original entity under which the city contracted via franchise agreement for solid waste services. Subsequent to that, in 2017, an assignment agreement was proposed related to the sale and transfer of the solid waste franchise from RED to Recology. The city agreed and supported the proposed assignment of the agreement to Recology, and Recology assumed all roles and responsibilities, and there was also some concurrent changes that were made to the waste agreement with the county to address the transfer as well. We're now coming up to a period of time when the existing franchise agreement is going to hit its time limit. And in preparation for that, I believe it's important to conduct a review of the franchise agreement because a number of things have changed in the solid waste industry from a regulatory perspective. There's also a number of regulations that have been approved but not yet implemented that will become effective in the near future, and I'm most specifically referencing Senate Bill 1383, which is going to require enhanced solid waste services to address, in particular, food waste and compost waste. But there's also changes occurring with respect to the collection of waste at the county level. Every year, the county, the landfill operator does adjust the rates, what they call the tipping fee at the landfill. And we go through a process to enable Recology or our franchise hauler to adjust the rates to account for that increase in tipping fees at the landfill. There are some proposed modifications to that tipping fee that are likely to occur. In addition, there's ongoing discussions by Zero Waste Sonoma in regards to how to implement SB 1383 and also try to address the need for a local compost facility that can serve Sonoma County. So it's kind of a little bit of a long-winded background, but given the time frame for the existing franchise agreement and the anticipation that there may be an opportunity for council to consider possibly a renewed agreement with Recology, or alternatively a more robust competitive process where we seek alternative haulers, it would be important to conduct a performance review to address what may be important to include in a future amended or updated franchise agreement to ensure that ultimately the city is the responsible entity, though we work with our franchise hauler to really help us implement the regulations. I sought a proposal from R3 Consulting Group. Reason we chose R3 solely for a proposal is one, their background and their qualifications. They've worked with the city fairly extensively during the assignment process. When Rado or Red was seeking to transfer their franchise agreement. And they've also had a long history at conducting the annual RRI adjustments and reviewing them and ensuring that they're accurate and correct. And likewise, they have a very good working knowledge of the local regulatory environment and the solid waste industry in Northern California. And also, I think it's important to say they do have a functional relationship with Recology. They primarily work with local governments and government organizations. But whenever you perform an audit, it's good to have a working relationship with the company you're going to be auditing. So the kind of the two aspects to the scope of work is a really detailed performance review, performance audit is maybe another way to say it, as well as to conduct the annual RRI, or again, refuse rate indices adjustment review. Included in the packet is a pretty detailed scope of work for that. This work would ultimately be funded by Recology under the franchise agreement. The franchisee is responsible for all costs associated with audits or performance reviews. So this cost would be borne by them. I did have a conversation with both Recology and R3, and they recognize fully that it's an obligation that they have. We haven't audited them or done a performance review, since they've taken over. It's, we're now about, that happened late 2017. So, we're now about 3 years in, and I think there's just a little under 2 years left on the contract. So this would be a good time to perform the performance review, check in really how they're doing, how they're performing, how they're meeting the obligations, but probably more importantly, to identify what are the critical aspects that we need to update in a future updated franchise agreement to ensure that we're meeting our waste reduction targets and we're in compliance with the new regulations, but also building a rate structure that is reflects the true costs of providing those services to our community. I think maybe the last thing to say is, council did support a rate adjustment to purchase new vehicles, and part of the work would be to kind of make sure that those vehicles are, we're paying our appropriate share of the cost for the vehicles for service in Cloverdale. and it, our ratepayers are only bearing the cost of the service that's being provided to our ratepayers, and not to other maybe county residents. So the proposal kind of speaks for itself. Again, pretty detailed. Wanted to reflect that it's a fairly involved effort, and again, it's the proposal is totals 50,000 for task one, an additional 7,500 for the rate review. There's a number of meetings built in, and this would help over the next, really probably inform the council really over the next year and a half, and prepare us for a new franchise agreement, in just really in time for the discussions with council to happen. So that's kind of an overview. I'm happy to review in more detail. We can also bring this back. There's not necessarily an urgency, but wanted to kind of start here with review, and we can bring either representatives from Ecology to the meeting and/or representatives from R3 to speak in more detail. But I did want to just at least introduce it to the Finance, Admin, and Police Subcommittee, Madam Chair.
Great. Thanks, David. I think this is it's actually very timely because, I remember just not too long ago, it's like, oh, it's that contract or that franchise agreement. It's that's ways away. But if we don't get on it now, it's going to sneak up on us because that's just what things do. So just, a couple of questions as far as, how we would proceed. Realistically, Recology is kind of one of the only games in town, but we do have I think, is it Ukiah Waste or I can't remember what the name of the place is in Ukiah. There is a hauler in Ukiah, and then
Yes.
I know Windsor has another
Right.
hauler.
Yeah, I think it's Solid Waste of Willits, SWOW. I think
Is that it? I can't. I don't know. I remember there's one. It's actually in it's in one of the old fruit packing plants right outside of downtown Ukiah. It's pretty close to. It's not Willits.
It's just solid waste.
Solid waste. That's why I can't. It's just solid waste. That's it.
Yeah. There is
Yeah,
a solid waste of Willits as well, though.
Okay. So just to confuse things. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And they do Fort Bragg and on the coast and Willits.
Right. So I guess I'm just wondering, if do we want to, is Recology really the only game in town, or do we want to, in advance of the franchise agreement expiring a year and a half, 2 years? I'm sorry. What's the time frame?
I was looking for the final date on the franchise agreement, and the one I have is undated, so I don't have the specific.
It's coming up though. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's coming up. And if we're contracting with R3, then this is the time to say, are we interested in and making them aware of that as well. So I just would, not want to limit our possibilities. I'm happy with the service that I get from Recology. I think they've been a really good partner, but I know it's always a good idea to see who else is out there and see what kind of services. But then in light of that, we have the new requirements from 1383. And then there's also the letter from the Sonoma County Director of Public Works. I was wondering if you could kind of explain what he's advising in that letter and how it might impact what we're asking R3 to do under contract with us. Because part of it is making sure that our obligations to meet SB 1383 requirements are met. And I know that would be part of the work that R3 would be doing as well. But could you just sort of it seems like the two topics sort of belong together.
Yeah, I think they do. So we've entered into an agreement with basically with Sonoma County for managing the landfill, and they've in turn entered into an agreement with a third party to manage the landfill. And our
with
landfill
Republic Services.
services, right? And they don't currently manage a green waste or compost program. So in order for us to comply, in order for the county to comply with 1383, most of the hauling agreements don't cover, what are all the requirements, don't include the regulatory requirements that are necessary to ensure compliance. And likewise, I don't think the landfill is currently structured to support our compliance. So there's going to be
Nope, they aren't. Thank you, Board of Supervisors, for letting Sonoma Compost and the management of our landfill go to Republic, but we can't do anything about that.
Yeah, and recognizing that this is there's a lot of moving pieces because Zero Waste Sonoma is trying to work on addressing the compost facility. But likewise, even our own franchise agreement, there's additional obligations that are required under SB 1383 that really we have to rely on our hauler to implement.
Right.
And then there's ancillary components to it, including public outreach and education, and some of that gets conducted through through Zero Waste.
Through Zero Waste, yeah, and their programs are great, but it's not the whole. Yeah.
And then it's based on tipping fees that are paid that fund Zero Waste to implement the program requirements. And so basically we're kind of almost needing to relook at the master waste agreement and the subsequent agreements to ensure that from top to bottom they comply with 1383. So this is kind of fairly detailed update and revision. We're kind of working its way through the process and separately from this. But I think it's an opportunity for us to really analyze these proposed changes that are coming and craft a franchise agreement that reflects some of these changes and ensure that we're in a position and I think it helps inform the council too if kind of your question, Madam Chair, is what if we want to preserve the option for other firms to maybe submit a proposal. I think it will be valuable to have this work product on Recology to especially if there are deficiencies identified, then it might point more clearly to the need to go through a competitive process where maybe they're performing extremely well, and you might say, well, it makes sense to negotiate a new agreement. But I think either way, there's going to be some major significant changes, and the way to do it is to start, I think, with the performance review.
For now. Yeah, it's my understanding the SB 1338, it goes into effect January 1st, 2022. I don't know if you've heard anything back from the state on, how hard are they going to start coming down on this on January 1st. I can't imagine that after a year of lockdown and all of our preparation to get ready for 1338 kind of got scuttled. It's certainly my hope that they would give us a little bit of slack, but of course our contract is going to, I think it's 2023, David. It might be 2024. I don't remember, but it's coming up. I mean, so they're not really in sync with each other, but we might as well be shooting for, as close to January 1st, 2022 as we can. So
right.
I think this is very timely. So I'd say, let's get this moving. What do you think is the best next step? Is it just bring R3 straight to the council, bring them to subcommittee? What's your preference?
Yeah, I think, well, I mean, part of it's, you know, your feedback and input. If you want to deliberate a little bit more, and learn more
With
about,
myself, sorry, okay.
well,
Or you.
well, maybe not next meeting, maybe the following meeting,
Yeah.
you'll have another member joining
Mhm.
you and have a more robust discussion. But otherwise, yeah, it's certainly appropriate to work with both Recology and R3, to, well, and probably more R3 to bring forward a proposal, to council with a presentation and overview of recommendation, on why we want to undergo this performance review and why it's a good time to do it.
I think that's my feedback then. My preference is knowing that that SB 1383 it's looming on the horizon. Our franchise agreement isn't really that much farther on the horizon. So let's sync it up and let's start shooting for January 1st. And I think we'll shoot for it, and we will probably miss. Just because they're busy, we're busy, we have to schedule meetings. Before we know it, January 1st is going to be here. So,
Right.
and just having sat on zero waste myself, I kind of know it. I've worked with R3 and have experience with them, and have positive experiences from that board as well. So I think sooner rather than later, people start it, and the sooner we start engaging the public around some of these requirements and the outreach requirements, I think that's always advantageous. So I'd say let's get moving on it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, ultimately it requires council approval. So
Yeah.
I think, work with Recology, or this, I keep saying Recology.
I know everything's R in that industry. I don't know why.
To bring it forward for council review and hopefully approval, or at least authority to move forward. But at least initiate that conversation with council.
Yeah.
And from there.
And it's my experience, with a firm like that, then they have a lot of fingers in a lot of municipalities and JPAs, and we need to get on their calendar as well. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
I know there's not a lot of firms out there that do this type of work.
No, they're in demand right now, and I'd rather be on their radar early rather than be late to the table and they don't. They're like, well, we can't get to you. So yeah, okay. So I think we're in agreement. I'm in agreement with my other subcommittee member, and that's crazy.
Yeah, I would anticipate that council would fully support moving forward, because it's going to be paid for by Recology.
Mhm.
And it's going to help us determine what's the appropriate course of action going forward, and identify some key regulatory requirements that we're going to need to address. And it also, I think it's an opportunity for the community to get engaged and listen in and hear part of the discussion, because it's pretty complex and it's not easy to explain, and it'll be easier if the community gets engaged and listens in, so they can understand better why we're in this space.
Right. So before we leave is there anything else from the letter from Transportation and Public Works that we should maybe just fold into this item? Are there any other concerns that you had?
Well, I guess the main issue, maybe it's just that what I think it's going to mean is increased costs for customers, and that of course means raising rates, and that always, again, when rates are raised, it's understanding why the rates are raised and the complexity behind it. There will probably be some legal costs that we have to bear to review some of the modifications in what they call the MOA, between Republic and Recology, and the county. And I mean, that's and really there's a concurrent burden upon, if you want to call it that, or responsibility for residents to more proactively manage their waste resources, especially their green waste, their food waste, and their compost materials. And ultimately the goal is to get much of that as possible diverted from the landfill. And so there's gonna the educational piece to it. Again, a lot of the county letter, I think, is kind of more technical and legal in terms of modifying the existing agreements to ensure that they comport with SB 1383. But the ultimate impact is going to be the cost in terms of ratepayers, I think.
Sure. Well, the subtext in this is that we need to get that styrofoam ban passed by the council as well, because that's a huge part of the lifespan and of the landfill, which will be reflected in the rates to the ratepayers. So yeah, I'd like to see that brought before council again for consideration. I'm not sure that it was I'm not sure it was explained in the right terms as to the impact that not passing that will have on ratepayers. So maybe we can take another swipe at that as well.
Yeah, I think staff's prepared to bring it back. Obviously, we have some changes in organization that are occurring, and we'll just schedule that when ready. Plus, in the meantime, there has been some additional outreach by way of letters from joint letters from Zero Waste in the city in regards to the ordinance that was already adopted by council. And again, what we brought forward was just amendments to the ordinance to reflect the without saying the long name, I'll use an acronym, PFAS in our waste stream, is to try to remove that. But the plan is to bring that forward at the appropriate time.
Great, thank you. Okay, with that, any other comments or any comments from the public, Irene?
No hands are raised.
Great, let's move on to item 5B, future services for audio visual assistance.
Okay, so we currently use an AV service for recording our council meetings, and they are live streamed to YouTube. In addition, as part of that service, which is provided by Visual Story Media, there's also some support in terms of the actual streaming of the video, ensuring the quality of the video, and then some video editing to facilitate the end users viewing of the video. We've been notified by Visual Story Media that they're going to be retiring at the end of the calendar year, so in December. So it was nice. We got at least a 6-month notice.
We got some notice. Why everybody is retiring on me? This is okay. I don't know about you, but it's getting a little frustrating. And he's not selling the business to anybody. Is that?
I haven't heard. We're going to schedule a meeting to discuss and see if he may have some recommendations on.
He may know somebody else in the industry. Otherwise, there are or somebody maybe purchasing his business and his commercial accounts. I think he's also pretty well connected with the SRJC video lab. So that might be another source that we could look to. But let's see if he has some referrals or a new owner. So
okay,
that is very nice that he gave us notice.
Right. We just wanted to, it was literally, gosh, what was it, last week, Irene? We got notified by email. And so wanted to get this on our radar so we can start, with 6 months, we can hopefully find the time to find a suitable alternative that will continue to provide the service to the city. He's really hands-on and provides a lot of technical assistance to Irene to ensure we have high quality streaming videos of our council meetings, and he also coordinates with public access television to get our videos streamed there as well. So we fostered a really positive working relationship, and we of course want to wish him well in the future, but with that, we'll have to do some research to determine what our experience. A lot of other cities have kind of their own AV equipment. I think both Windsor and Healdsburg do, and then they have either they hire an operator that comes in, or they have staff that provides that service. But we got to do.
I know we've looked into it before, and when the theater was first opening, it was just really prohibitively expensive. But I've mentioned it several times. I would really like to see if we can install a video, some video equipment in the theater, because it would give them the ability to rent that facility out for other community meetings, for other business meetings where they need that technology just built into the building. So it may still be too expensive. It may still, but now would be a good time to maybe get a bid and look at that as well. So,
well, I think that's great feedback, and I think that it gives us some direction. We can, maybe rather than just looking for a replacement. I mean, of course, try to find if there's alternatives for just replace the current provider. But
and other cities sometimes just build this into their city hall, their meeting rooms. Sometimes, they have AV tech staff available. Obviously, that's not an option for us, but if it would be something that we need and that would allow the CPAC to have another revenue stream, I think it's time to revisit that and see if we can make that happen.
Okay. Yeah, I think I've seen Kevin do AV operation before. Get those cameras.
No comment. Yeah, my husband is also an AV nerd, so yeah.
The backup guy. I was the backup guy in Windsor. Once in a while, they called me and I freaked out.
They must have really been desperate. Yeah.
But it is, Madam Chair, I appreciate the direction, and we'll look into that alternative. We did get a new audio system installed. So when we
we've got the new microphones, so that'll be great when we're back in the building. But yeah, if that's something that the city can provide, and then it gives CPAC a revenue source, because I know that they're hurting for income. I mean, all theaters and entertainment venues are. If that's something that we can do to help them, I mean, hopefully the rest of the council would support that, but let's look at how much it might cost, and that might be a good investment to help us and to help them. So,
well, that's great feedback and direction. We'll seek some alternative proposals. Again, looking at a firm to provide, kind of continue the service as is.
Sure.
Also look at what it would take to install some AV equipment. Get a proposal for that.
Right. Let's just get a proposal, and costs on that are just they just drop every year. So it might pencil out and it might not. So, but let's find out. Are there any hands raised? Irene?
No hands are raised.
Okay. We can always come back to AV because it's such a riveting subject, but if there are no hands raised, maybe we can move on to item C, cancellation of July 5th. I say yes. Is there any further debate?
No debate from staff.
Didn't think so. Any public comment?
No debate because
Woohoo! Okay, moving on. Now at item 6, standing items. No, go ahead, Marcia.
yes, I was gonna say, I hope that we don't have to meet on July 5th.
I think it's a done deal. Any other members of the public have their hands raised? Irene?
No hands are raised.
Okay, moving on. Item 6. Now, we got a late email from Rebecca regarding item A, and she was suggesting, since she can't come to these meetings at this time, that because we hold them at this time, she suggested we just fold that into Resilient Cloverdale for now.
Yeah, and Madam Chair, we're at the next council meeting on the 23rd. We're gonna, well, presuming council takes action on Wednesday to appoint a person to fill the vacancy left by former Councilmember Turner, we will bring back the subcommittee and regional board appointments. One, because there's some vacancies by, on regional boards from former Councilmember Mayor Turner, but also on subcommittees. I know Mayor Cruz has expressed, her interest in serving on this committee. And so she may want to not sit on one of our other subcommittees like the Joint City Fire. So, and then there'd be a vacancy on the Public Works, and then there's the filling the vacancy on the Air Board position. So,
Oh yeah, we've got to backfill a lot of stuff. So, okay, again, more that we will know after Wednesday.
right, and I think it's an opportunity for once as part of that conversation is to, because by resolution we not only do we set the appointments, but we set the meeting dates and times. So I think some of the meeting times were adjusted to accommodate.
Yeah, I'd like to adjust those too. So yeah,
right,
that works.
so we could, and I'm sure you get a lot of smiles from staff if they're scheduled at a maybe a little bit earlier in the day, but that's really up to council and the chairs to decide what's the best time. So in short, we were thinking that on the 23rd, council could have that discussion, set the subcommittee with the membership you like, and then modify or update the meeting dates and times.
That sounds great. Sounds like a plan. Okay. So we'll skip over, we'll fold A in when appropriate. And then do you have anything on the current state of COVID-19?
Well, two things. One, I wanted to mention that starting last week, City Hall initiated a soft reopening. We have put notices on the door that City Hall is open on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 1 to 5, and pretty much it's aligns with the reopening plan that we presented to this subcommittee. We've been challenged a little bit with the firm that was going to provide the security cameras, so we're relooking at that. But we do have a new person that we've brought on to backfill the vacancy in our front office staff, and this has presented the opportunity for her to get some hands-on training and kind of interact at a lower pace with the public. I personally witnessed a customer come in with a on-off form for utilities, and she was able to walk the resident through getting the utility set up. So we're slowly making the transition of reopening, and we want to do it, of course, safely for our staff, but also recognize that during the pandemic we kind of we went into staff reduction mode, and we didn't immediately backfill positions that were vacant, and so we're kind of now we're working through that and getting kind of staff back up.
I've had 2 restaurants tell me to tell my friends that if they need jobs to come and apply. So everybody's competing for for employees right now, because everybody either cut back or didn't fill positions. So now we're going to be competing for scarce resources. So
right. So we'll continue. Our staff's plan is to continue to follow the reopening plan and, adjust accordingly as we, are ready. And, we want to continue to provide, good service to our community, and the number right there with an email. If anybody, has any outstanding or issues that they need addressed, they can email or phone. And then besides that, we've made the adjustments to OpenGov with online permitting. We're trying to all the while facilitate additional, online services for the community to be service oriented. The other announcement, just wanted to mention, is that we've received, I think it's probably maybe not final, but draft final guidance from the Treasury on the American Relief Plan funds for 9 non-entitlement cities, and our finance director is working on looking at all of the requirements associated with obtaining those funds. Ultimately, our goal will be to bring that to council to have a discussion about how council would like to consider utilizing those funds and for what purpose. And along with that, some staff recommendations, of course, an overview of the guidance that's been provided to ensure the funds are used in a manner consistent with the federal guidelines. So those are really the two main updates. And I wanted to just offer Chief, if there was anything you wanted to say from a operational perspective with the PD, any highlights or anything relative to COVID and kind of reopening.
So as far as the reopening, we haven't actually opened our doors to the public lobby, but our situation's a little bit different because we have the ability to speak to people outside of the lobby through a speaker and then buzz them in accordingly if need be. It's worked really well for us because our officers, once they get the information, can walk out the lobby doors and meet with them. We'll probably look into changing that, but it's actually working really well right now. And quite honestly, we haven't had a lot of public concern about whether our lobby is open or not, because once you're in the lobby, you're not meeting anybody anyway. So you have a big bulletproof glass window protecting you from protecting our dispatchers from anybody. There's not a lot of communication there or contact. So it's quite a bit of a different scenario. As far as COVID's concerned, we just keep plugging along. We did have a exposure situation we were a little concerned about, but we had great guidance and moved through it pretty well. But we keep plugging along and hoping that we get a little bit of relief in some of the measures that are in place. But yeah, that's where we're at.
Thank you, Chief. Well, Madam Chair, those are really the two key updates. Just want to share with the Finance Admin and Police Subcommittee.
Right. So that's it for understanding items COVID-19. Irene, are there any members of the public who'd wish to ask a question or comment?
Not at this time, Chair.
Okay, great. Then it looks like let's drop down to item C. Do you have anything to report on the Sonoma County Homeless Emergency Response?
Well, two quick updates. We have a Sonoma County, City of Cloverdale Community Advisory Group homelessness meeting tomorrow, Tuesday. And one of the work products that we're going to present is a survey to the community on the action items, to get a kind of a sense of priority for the action items. And so there'll be a update on that tomorrow. And then the other update is in regards to the Northern Sonoma County homelessness effort that was initiated by Supervisor Gore. Supervisor Gore made a statement that the strategic plan that was prepared was approved by him, and so that plan is now in effect, and we'll provide just a brief update to our community advisory group tomorrow on the final plan that it was adopted.
Oh, that's great news. Yeah, and that's the plan that we worked on with BJ and
right. Yeah,
and that
BJ
group. Great.
with the facilitator, and so they're gonna continue some of the meetings to work on implementation. Actually, one of the implementation items is to conduct a tour of LG Village or Las Gallegos Village, well as what was formerly called the Astro Hotel, and they've given it a new kind of a new branding name, and do the tour to kind of get a sense of how it's being managed by the entity that's the county contracted with for those
Did they
services.
contract with St. Vincent's? I
They
believe.
did,
Or they did for Los Guillicos, if I remember.
right. Yeah, St. Vincent's is the managing entity for LG Village,
Mhm.
and I just don't have it on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah, the other manager firm. Okay.
but
Okay.
they
That sounds great.
yeah, it's so they want to ensure that people are familiar with those models, because one of the kind of basic tenets of the strategic plan is to seek, maybe similar type of shelter within North Sonoma County, or likewise to through the Project Home Key acquire a hotel or a motel to serve as a shelter. And then kind of the third option was to look at some kind of safe parking program that could be accommodated in again, North Sonoma County to address the kind of the roaming recreational RV vehicle encampments. So
Right.
part of this tour was just to help inform council members, community members about, how these places are being managed, and what we might expect if we were to support a similar facility in North Sonoma County. And I think Supervisor Gore is taking a pretty strong position that he believes that this is part of the solution. And as you'll hear him say, lean in and help me. I want to place something similar. And he says so, I think, based on the Boise decision to enable to do more robust enforcement, and you got to have a facility located.
Yeah, you have to have an alternative. Yeah, and I think that's also the lesson out of the. I guess I'm old school at this point, or I'm behind the times, because I got to start calling it LG Village. Like, I got a tour like the first month that they were open, so I don't think we were calling it that then. But I think it's a big lesson, because I think that among some elected officials in the valley, there was huge pushback, and there were members of the public who were neighbors right next door, and they're like, no, this is a great place, and they were being great neighbors, and it's being facilitated very well. And so they've had really, they've had a pretty positive experience out there. But I would say that as far as looking after Cloverdale's interests, we have to. I think I'd like to follow the model of the city of Sebastopol, is when the county did get into a contract with one of their major lodgers in downtown Sebastopol, they made sure that their TOT was backfilled. And I think that that's something that we want to be sure to negotiate with. And it's different from city to city. A lot of cities use TOT for homelessness and housing anyway, but and then some don't. And so I just want to make sure that when that happens, that we're made, our TOT is made whole if it were to happen in Cloverdale. So if Supervisor Gore wants to work with us, he has to actually work with us. So
Right. That's a good comment, and I think if from his perspective, he's asking us to be involved, and there is a challenge, because real property negotiations are often done confidentially, and county engages in that process, and they are obligated to do it confidentially, but he also understands he wants to get our buy-in and support
right
for any type of initiative. So
and there's been there may need to be a state legislative remedy to that, because I think a lot of cities across the state are it's something that, yeah, the county will enter into a real property negotiation with a private landowner, and that is their private business negotiation. But then the city is denied their usual TOT, which has already been, allocated, planned for. So there has to be a win-win-win for all of the parties involved. And so I'm sure that Supervisor Gore understands that that's what we would want to have happen. So in the meantime, I've got to watch out for our own community's interests. So I see the mayor has her hand raised. Before I open it up to public comment, I'll go ahead
And real quick, I just wanted to mention, I just had to look at the name real quick because it was on the tip of my tongue. The group that the county has contracted with to manage the Astro Motel, Elderberry Commons now is this festival in the other name is now called the Mickey Zane Place. Is DEMA Consulting and Management, and I
Okay.
think their expertise is a medical focused approach to assisting our unsheltered community members, and especially around COVID and how you address COVID in terms of providing services to the homeless or unsheltered population in these settings in hotels. And so
Great.
the great DEMA.
Well, thank you for the detail. Appreciate it. So yeah, Marta, go ahead.
Yeah, Vice Mayor Lance and I are going to attend the tour on Wednesday. At
Oh,
Los
great. Oh, good to
Químicos
know.
at-
Great.
Yes.
Thank you. That's good to know. Great. Irene, are there any other comments?
Yes, Miss
Yes.
Debbie Howe.
Great. Go ahead, Debbie.
Hi, guys. I guess my only comment would be to make sure that we don't shoot ourselves in the foot, because I'm still concerned with the cost of our officers having to take homeless people out of the community to wherever we have to take them. That cost is probably astronomical. So if we've got a local place to take them versus a place out of our own community, I would like to know what that cost would run us versus our reimbursement from TOT, or that's a transit oriented tax. Is that what you're talking about for hotels?
Right, Debbie. Yeah, that's that extra, like in Mendocino, in the village of Mendocino, I think it's like 20%, but it's not that high here. Healdsburg is pretty hefty too, and it's that extra kind of local transit oriented transit occupancy tax.
Mhm.
Yeah. So actually, David or Kevin, can you address what the associated transportation costs are if folks are being housed out from Cloverdale outside of the area?
Well, currently we don't fund the expense. It's it'd be borne by the entity that's providing the shelter services, and in sense be funded through whether it's some kind of federal or state funding. But where there is an expense, I think is with our officer time, what really going through the process of arresting an individual, booking them, doing the associated paperwork to address maybe what's considered an activity that's not not permitted.
But
And
I mean, hopefully that's not happening. Hopefully they're getting, their information is being taken in by a qualified social worker through a Reach for Home, or one of the other agencies that has the contract to do this work through the county of Sonoma.
yeah, so this is part of the ongoing discussion about the response to homelessness and the services that are being provided through the county. The kind of two specific programs that are being stood up, well, have been stood up by the county, and it's a function of how are those services being provided, particularly to the incorporated cities, and that's an area where we're seeking additional support from the county. there's kind of two separate programs. One is called the IMDT program, interdisciplinary team, and it's really geared towards kind of health services. And so a lot of the work that the IMDT team does is kind of confidential, related to behavioral health treatment, physical health services, and that's the kind of work that they're trying to get those teams out to the unsheltered population and get them services with the goal of kind of getting them into some kind of permanent supportive housing. The other team that is being stood up by the county is called the HEART team, and that's the Homeless Encampment Access and Resource Team cohort, and they're geared towards identifying to the unsheltered community where they can go, where there are shelter opportunities, providing vouchers, providing shelter placement. But so that's a good thing in the sense that it relieves law enforcement from necessarily intervening in certain circumstances if they're proactive and they take it. Where we're still, I think, missing, and Chief, you feel free to chime in here, is we're still experiencing individuals with mental health conditions that, while they might get taken on a 5150 to a facility, the services aren't necessarily there to fully support those individuals. And we're seeing a lot of recidivism and folks getting right back out, kind of continuing to contribute to our big to our community, that they're not being properly addressed. So that's there's still a deficiency in that area, and that's part of our discussion topic at our homeless team. What can we do to maybe address some of the deficiencies in Laura's law? How can we get those folks who really need, maybe to be kept longer, and manage more directly those services, and that's an area we're missing right now. But I don't know, Chief, is there anything you wanted to add on the kind of the
So you broke up a little bit, but I agree with you in that we still have issues here as it relates to our individuals who have, I would say, serious mental health and behavioral concerns. We've done everything in our power that we know we're capable of, but yet we still don't seem to get the answers, and they still walk our streets, and there's still concerns. And Debbie Howell had asked a question a while back, and I'm going to answer this for you because you said you were curious at what the expense is for law enforcement to deal with this. And I will tell you that I brought up one individual that on 7 different occasions since 2020, we have placed on a mental health hold to no avail, which means transportation. We've also made arrest when appropriate, but we're talking in the tune for just this one individual over $8,000. And so, yes, you can talk about significant expense in at least our part being this far north, getting them to the resources. Our biggest challenge is getting those out here. And I think I've said before, we really need to lobby for that. Was it Measure O money that the county got for mental health crisis unit? It really needs to branch out here, and it really needs to make a difference. And I'd have to say, David, it goes beyond keeping them longer, because that's not necessarily a solution. Fixing the issue is the solution, regardless of how long that's going to take. And I don't think necessarily putting them in a housing is going to fix that unless we fix the mental health issue first. So
yeah, it has to be the right facility that's actually going to start helping. Yeah.
10 people in a housing unit that don't have mental health crisis is not going to change the circumstances.
Well, I don't think that's the kind of housing that I think that they were the county's talking about. I think they're talking about wraparound services at these places. But Debbie, your hand is still up. Did you have anything to add or a follow-up question?
I just don't know that we even have a team up here. I mean, that's, I guess, my question with, in regards to the county providing these services. When, have you
Yeah.
guys seen them? Because I certainly haven't.
So if you're asking, no, is the
No, we
answer.
haven't seen them.
What we
Okay.
do
The
is,
measure passed in November.
yeah, so we
Okay.
get called to them, Debbie. We get called to the circumstance. We make
Right.
the determination there, and then we act using the authority we have almost in that capacity to get them to the appropriate resource. But that resource is not close to us. So it's a matter of us doing all of the work to make that happen. And
And
to
so-
date, I'm not aware of when they've actually come this far to
Right.
provide assistance.
So at this point in the game, when you guys are acting, are you actually transporting people to a housing facility or just to jail?
So most of this time, what we're trying to do is get them to the appropriate resource, which is mental health. So we do have to transport them
Okay,
to the nearest location where then they're connected to that resource.
like the crisis stabilization unit or something?
We don't have that luxury of going there. We have to go to the nearest and local hospital facility and work out the circumstances from there. And sometimes, most of the times, it becomes Santa Rosa for us.
Okay, so, and I ask for this just because when I'm in meetings, I can say without a doubt that, no, I'm sorry, those services are not being provided up here. Because I get told often that they are, and they are, to my knowledge, they are not.
So I would really like, and if you do wind up, Debbie, inquiring and getting some answers, I would love to know what those answers are.
Okay.
Because since I have been here in nearly 2 years, I have yet to see or hear of a circumstance where I would say there's a half a dozen people that we work with on a regular basis that continue to be out on our streets, knowing full well that they should not be. So if that's happening, then again, there's a gap in that situation that's not working. Either we're taking them
Okay.
there. If they're coming out here, I'm not seeing the end result being
No.
something positive and it's working.
It's not happening. So I just want to keep asking the question so I make sure I'm saying what's correct when I'm in these meetings, because I keep advocating, no, I'm sorry. There are no homeless services in Cloverdale. You guys are not helping our people. And yet you are mandated to and you're funded to. So we are part of Sonoma County, and I keep saying it, but I need to keep checking in to make sure I'm not saying, come to find out there are people up here helping us.
Right. And if they are, I don't know why we're not contacted and made aware.
Right.
I would love to know that. And I think it's very important that we do know that so that we are in the loop on that when it comes to the services that are being provided here.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
And Madam Chair, if I can add, the mayor and I and Vice Mayor Lands, we did get asked to come out to the river area, which was in unincorporated Sonoma County, but adjacent to the city. Just 2 weeks ago, it was on a council day. It was pretty warm. And the HEART team was called out, and they showed up, and they were there. Primarily providing resources and they were handing out socks and those kinds of things, and kind of taking names of individuals. So that they did come out, but that was, again, I think because a member of the Board of Supervisors requested. And I think what we're hearing is that the services tend to be directed and focused to unincorporated areas, and the extension of those services to our incorporated community is not on the same par or is deficient, and that's an area that I know Mayor Cruz through the ad hoc and the other mayors and council members are working on to try to address the equity of service across jurisdictional boundaries. So it's a work in progress.
I need to say,
Marta Cruz has something. Do you have something to add, Mayor Cruz?
yes, I cannot agree with Debbie to say that there are no services provided to Cloverdale, because that is not true. Reach for Home is here every week, at least twice a week, doing street nursing, and at the same time, coordinating, and I have seen this myself, coordinating with Reach for Home to deliver meals to homeless people in the incorporated and non-incorporated areas. So the problem that exists as of today is not necessarily if there are services or not, is that entities are not communicating among each other. You know, they don't talk to the police department, they don't talk to Alexander Valley Health, and vice versa. The chief has made an incredible outreach effort, and he has been very present. However, the people who come out hard, Reach for Home, and remind me, David, there are 2 more organizations that come out, and they are discussing the COC, are not necessarily communicating with one another. And this is the same situation that's happening when it comes to food security. People in the organizing teams or administration are not talking to one another. And until we continue to push for this communication to happen, we're going to have the perception that there is absolutely no assistance to people in Cloverdale. So assistance is limited, but it is not at a 0 point. So that's something that we're advocating for, not only in the North County Homelessness Planning Committee, but also in the mayors and city directors with the continuum of care meetings. So what I think we should do is perhaps provide some information simultaneously to Debbie and to the chief. And we need to find a contact person to be able to provide information to both the chief and to Alexander Valley Health. So that's my 2 points. And David, I think you could add a couple of more groups that do come to the city. And the sheriff department is also in this conversation.
Yeah, I think that, you know, what I'm hearing is that there's definitely frustration because I think this is often the case. You have a handful of really problem individuals who are very difficult, and it's not a matter of homeless services being able to make a dent in it. It's that the police have to intervene on a regular basis, and they're very high profile. The chief notices it, the officers notice it, and it's an ongoing problem because we don't seem to have the resources to start moving these people out of this situation. But I think that what's also going on, and that's kind of one category, and then the other category is the folks who I see, you know, on a regular basis. I walk, you know, I live off of First Street. I walk to the River Park, and I usually walk downtown most days. And the fact is that a lot of these guys come and hang out in downtown, and then at night they're going to the river. So it's like, okay, is that a county problem or is that a city of Cloverdale problem? Well, guess what? It's all of our problems. So, and I know that, you know, Reach Your Home, yeah, they're here every week, and they don't contact the chief and say, oh, we have another person placed. They don't contact David. I have another person placed. It's probably against their privacy, you know, their standards, because they are taking them into their system, and they are, you know, they're finding a place for them to get housed. And depending on the continuum of care is that the people who are the most sensitive get into housing first. So a lot is going on in the background that, you know, Alexander Valley is not aware of, police not aware of, city manager I'm not aware of, Martha's not aware of. All of this is going on through those through the contracts with the county. And I think what we're seeing is what we've been concerned about for a long time is the acute homeless problem with a handful of individuals that we want to see the needle move on. And I think that, you know, when we're all out advocating at these different meetings, that's what we need to advocate for. Is we need to say that these are the tools that we need as a rural city that is, you know, 45 minutes away from services. The transportation fees are this expensive. It's these repeat folks who are pretty hardcore and need a very high level of care and service. And it's a small percentage of our shelterless population. It's a handful of those folks. Most people who are homeless, they don't want you to know they're homeless.
And we are advocating very heavily on this one. And
so
this
I think
is
that
why
that's the big, I think that that's the big lesson here is that, and then also, you know, it's the thing that I advocated for too, when I was part of the North County Task Force, is we do need a report out from Reach for Home and the other agencies who have the contract with the County of Sonoma to do that homeless outreach for us. We don't need to know who they were and where they were from originally and what their story was. We just need to know that X number of individuals were brought into the continuum of care and were provided housing at different kinds of levels. That's what we need to know, so that we know that, you know, as Tom Schwenhelm is famously quoted to say, is so that we can get to functional zero. We need to get to functional zero on homelessness in this county. So, and then we need to have a way to address these the really difficult cases. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, I walk past them, you know, just about every day. And I know exactly what the business owners and, you know, the residents of Cloverdale are concerned about. And it's a law enforcement issue because these people in many cases have severe mental illness or drug addiction problems. And it's a public health and a public safety issue. So that's the message that we need to take to you know, to all of our meetings and our meetings with Gore and our meetings with the state at every level, is that's what our need is.
Madam Chair, if I may for a second, that is one of the objectives that the supervisor and the North County team has, is to be able to address the issues with the people at their location because they are not willing to go anywhere else. So to be able to provide the mental health, to be able to provide the medical assistance inside, so that it could be, let's say, that's why they are contemplating some hotels, some Gillicos, probably type of location, et cetera, because these individuals will not go outside of Cloverdale. They will not go outside of where we are. So he's very, very aware of that, and he's definitely focusing on that. And that's why we have been working very closely with the different entities that will make this wholesome approach to the individuals. So that is the objective, so that the police doesn't have to spend all that money, so that Alexander Valley Health doesn't have to engage in that cost. And, you know, many examples have been given of individuals in Durhamville that some of them bring so much trash and it has to be hauled, and it costs thousands of dollars every time. And every time somebody leaves a trailer somewhere, that's another cost to the county, etc. So it is very challenging, and they are not deaf to our, you know, to our claims, and we're definitely voicing.
We're not the only ones experiencing that
Yes.
challenge. So, Irene, are there any other hands raised in the public? We need to move on to our next item.
Ms. Howell raised her hand again if you wish to reopen
Oh,
comment.
Debbie, go ahead.
I think that Reach for Home will be at the homeless advocacy meeting tomorrow. We can ask them to give us a report out. And it is exactly like you said. I agree. We don't need to know who, we just need to know how many, that sort of thing. That would be nice to know. And again, I'm advocating that our police resources are not spent on this activity. It's just not their job.
Well, it's not their job. We're paying, taxes to the county, and now we're paying an additional tax for them to address this issue.
Right.
You are at the right subcommittee, Debbie.
Yep, I totally.
We're
I'm opposed
watching
to
the
that.
purse strings. Any other comments, Irene?
Madam Chair, if I can, I just want to make one final comment, and I'll point to a resource just so it's on the record, because your point, I think, is well taken, that, you know, what we lack is information. The county is developing a program. It's called Access Sonoma, and Access, again, is an acronym. It's accessing coordinated care and empowering self-sufficiency. They've they've teamed up with IBM and the integrated data hub, or they're calling the Watson Care Manager. I just received a presentation last week. It's the intent is to provide a tool for the community to actually utilize GIS to get numbers. It strips all the confidential data away, but that can start. What they're trying to develop is the public access policy around that. So the county, I think, understands that there is a tremendous need for information and tracking our unsheltered population. So I think we're going to see a lot more development in this space around information. And so I would direct folks to sonomacounty.ca.gov and then look up Access Sonoma. It's an overview of the program, and they're trying to roll that out so that at least confidential city staff will probably have access first, and then make it available to the community and service providers so they can better track the data around home unsheltered populations. So it is forthcoming. It's they're building the kind of plane as we go, and trying to figure out that the privacy issues and how best to grant the community access to this data. But it's pretty neat, and it will be. I'm sure we're going to continue to hear more about this as time goes on, and they build the program to be more robust.
Okay. Well, for purposes of this subcommittee, I'd like staff to continue to monitor the progress on the COC, and when there are numbers available from the county on what the entities who have a contract to address homelessness in the North County, when those numbers are available, we need to see those reports, because we need to get that information out there so that we're able to then, when we are in meetings and we are meeting with GOR, we can lobby effectively and ask for what it is that we need and what our real frustration points are, so that we can be very clear on what our expectations are, making sure we're getting our fair share of that tax revenue, and we are not expending our very limited police resources where they shouldn't be, when it should be the county, when it's their responsibility to take care of to address these issues, and they're the ones who should, they're the ones who have the resources to do it. So let's just continue to report out and get ourselves and the public that the information that we need to be effective. So unless there are any other comments, I'd like to move on to item D and measure P.
Madam Chair, I'll turn it over to Finance Director Holmes if you want to provide a high-level summary of our cannabis revenue.
Sure, I'd be happy to. You just find it. So attached in your report is the schedule of deposits that have been made through May 31st. It seems like we are starting to get more of the annual permit revenue right now. More permits are due at this time of year, so we should see an increase in those as well. I think we have no accounts that are past due and one account that owes from an audit.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay. Great. It looks like things are starting to come out in the wash a little bit.
Yes.
Become a little more predictable. Okay.
Yes.
We're getting to we almost have statistical significance, Susie.
Exactly. Yes. We don't have large payments being made from
Right.
past due. So yeah.
Right.
We're doing,
Right.
Everybody's doing really well right now.
I'd like to get to predictability. That would be great.
And Madam Chair, maybe for the future, at some point, Susie, we can actually put these into a table where we can do kind of, year by year comparisons over month or month by month, then actually
Yeah.
seeing.
But they have to be meaningful. I mean, right now, these numbers look like the smart ridership data.
Yeah.
It's like, that's not a statistically significant sample.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, eventually it's like, oh, I love a bar graph, man. That's great. So Kevin,
Yeah.
did you have something?
I do. David and I did meet with the cannabis permit holders a few months ago, and they are working on a proposed tax amendment. And David, I didn't tell you this because I just got something from Erin Gore just a few hours ago. That she wants us to review, and I said it would end up at this committee, which is likely next time if you guys are okay with that.
So we just agendize it for the next meeting.
I mean,
But
we
they're-
can almost
they're-
just use this title, but anyway, I just wanted to let you know that that is progressing along.
Yes.
Okay, yeah,
And we
let's get a review next time.
And also, we do have one new cannabis business that it has started paying. So
I heard, I think their opening day was 4/20.
yes.
Yeah. Got to have a sense of humor to do this job. Anyway. Great. Let's see. Let me go back to my agenda. I was looking at the Measure P. So that's Measure P. Oh, is there any public comments, Irene?
Yes. Go ahead, Debbie.
Go ahead.
Hi, I just have a question. How many cannabis businesses do we have in town?
We
Ooh,
got
great
6.
question. Do you want them by category or just by total number?
Yeah.
Total number.
6 is the number.
And I guess it is by category then. Which ones are the resellers or whatever? I
Well,
don't know
there's-
anything about the cannabis business, but
There's 2
Oh,
retailers.
Debbie, you should have come to those meetings, Debbie. You could know everything.
I went to one and said, no, thank you.
Not for me.
Not for me.
Oh,
I
it's
have
smart.
other things to do.
That was wellness. That was practicing wellness. That was
Yeah, yeah. So we only have 2 retailers, right?
Right.
That's correct.
Okay, thank
Two.
you.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's in the cannabis ordinance if you want to look it up too.
No, I'll
different
take your word for it.
Oh, okay.
I did just hear today that the grocery store across from the health center on Tarman, that facility's been sold and they're opening a biker club. Have you guys heard anything about that?
Well, that's not on Measure P, Debbie. So I'm gonna
I
have
just
to-
was curious, a biker club. I'm going, what the hell does that mean? I don't know. Is it a cannabis club? I don't know what it is, but whatever.
I don't think so.
Hope
And I
not.
don't think they're bicycling either.
No.
So
motorcycle.
yeah, I don't think they have e-bikes. I think they have something else.
Okay,
So-
thanks.
Anything else from the public, Irene, on Measure P?
Nothing for
Nothing further? Okay, let's move on to the exciting topic of pension liability legislation. You have any news for us?
Madam Chair, no updates on pension.
And I think you covered OpenGov. I think we beat SB 1383 to death unless you want to do anything else on that. You want to go on to technology improvements in the phone system and digital storage policy. Any updates?
No real updates. I think we're probably going to look at further technology updates as a possible ability of using some funding maybe for ARP, the American Relief Plan related to broadband, especially extension of a resilient in backup internet for City Hall and public facilities. And I think that's kind of a key upgrade or improvement that's necessary to support further technology investments, at City Hall and the police department.
Any progress on the digital storage services policy? Because that is just you probably could steal that language from another city, because I know that's something that needs to get done.
No updates. I think it's just, we got to prioritize it and
I'll leave it, as long as it's on your radar and in the queue somewhere, that's great, because it's gonna hit us at some point. All right, on that, any other comments or hands raised, Irene? Before I move on to, great, we'll move on to item 7 and future agenda items. What do you have for us? Any comments on any of these 3?
yeah, we don't have any updates at this point. We do want to bring back, in particular, item 7C, because of the regulations that were put into place related to COVID. We've seen a number of our utility accounts go into delinquency. And it does have a financial impact for our water and sewer enterprise. And we weren't ready yet to provide a report to the Finance, Admin, and Police Subcommittee, but we may have some data, but we want to bring this forward and have a more robust discussion. And our city attorney is also evaluating the legislation and what are some of the alternatives that we can undertake to address, some of these delinquencies. And then it might also factor into the American Relief Plan and how we might come up with some alternatives to address, some of the impacts to our enterprises related to COVID.
Great. Oh, and Susie, do you have something to add?
Yes, I just want to briefly mention that we have currently 142 accounts that are past due. And
And out of a total of how many?
Out of 3,300.
Okay.
The past due amount is 15% of the total. And of that, the severely past due or more than 120 days past due is 60,000 of the 82,000. So you could see that there's specific, if 60,000 of the 82,000 past due is severely past due, those are the comms, and that's 72 accounts. So
Okay.
It's not terrible, but I mean,
Yeah.
So
I would suggest that we report this, that we have a staff report to council with the breakout of the numbers, just like you gave them to me. Yeah. Because
Okay.
I think that's information that we need to have. And then how much of it you think we can expect to have backfilled? I mean, it's every agency, well, Sonoma Clean Power is in the same position. And I would imagine that it's a lot more ratepayers. It's Sonoma Clean Power, but it's about the same ratio. That's my impression. Yeah. Well, we're all in the same boat together, so.
yeah, I think we're gonna have to set up payment reschedules,
Yeah.
Um,
And do we have a policy on that? Oh,
We do.
We do. Okay.
We can. Yes, up to a year.
Okay.
They can set up a repayment plan for up to a year.
Mhm.
But right now we're not charging any penalties, right? Or late
Right.
fees. But as soon as that starts, we'll have to decide, do we want to charge penalties on the past due,
Mhm.
which is what we typically do, or do we want to waive the penalties on the amounts that are currently past due and only do it on future?
Right. Okay. Yeah. It's going to have to go before the entire council, right, David? Or do you want to bring it back to a full complement of this subcommittee?
Well, I think, Madam Chair, maybe the latter first.
Okay.
Because there's the
But I
data.
think we should still have a report out in the meantime on where we are, and then yeah, that we're going to bring this back once we have a full complement here, as far as to do some of the legwork before it goes to council to implement the payment plan.
Right. That's and
The policy around the repayment plans.
policy discussion. I think.
Yeah.
The data is one aspect, and I think Susie can start articulating kind of the just the raw data into a memo.
Right.
But where we want to take it is to get, some policy direction from council on how we handle or how we address these delinquencies. Because we had a process preceding the pandemic, and the methodologies worked, and they worked fairly well. But we don't have the same tools available, i.e. shutoffs, and so folks can just continue not paying and not have to be concerned about shutoff. And for a lot of people, that's what was the impetus to pay their bill. But recognizing we're in difficult, challenging times, and so there really needs to be some guidance from council on how we address these.
Yeah, and I think we need to, have a full understanding of the other aid that is available. And then again, where we need to talk to, where we need to talk to our state representatives and just say, hey, this is the real deal. This is what's really going on. And, this is where we need help. So, okay. I think you have some adequate direction on that. Any public comments, Irene? Anything? Nope.
Quick comment.
Okay, great. Anything for good of the order? I have an announcement. I'll keep it very short. We received a notification today via Sonoma County Transportation Authority and SMART that Congressman Huffman was able to get 13.6, now I can't remember, $13.4 million for earmarked for a bridge, the rail bridge over the Russian River at Healdsburg. So it's in committee in transportation and infrastructure, and they're going to fight it out on Wednesday, and we'll know if anybody manages to get that money out of Congressman Huffman's death grip that he probably has on it, because he's pretty committed to getting that. So that is very good news. That's why I left my SMART picture up. He's very committed to getting that funding for SMART, because that is one of the major hurdles for making sure that we get SMART passenger rail to Healdsburg and north to Cloverdale, and with the accompanying pathways. So that's my news. Any other announcements? I mean, everybody, other than let's change this meeting so we're not starving by the end and we can all have dinner at a decent hour, right? Yeah.
I guess one final announcement, Madam Chair, and it's certainly for you as the chair, but also for the community, is that our staff has established what we call a water emergency resource team, or water emergency response team. Acronym is WERT. I don't know if it's the best acronym, but we are meeting bi-weekly to discuss response to the drought, and we're definitely stepping up our efforts. We'll be making some progress on outreach materials, door hangers, and things like that to encourage further conservation. We're not quite seeing the conservation that we'd like to see.
I don't know. I've seen a lot of brown lawns.
Yeah,
walking around town. It makes me very proud.
And likewise, there are still some really green ones, but
yep.
We've made modifications in our irrigation schedule to reduce our water usage at city parks and facilities by 25%. And our parks and facility staff are working hard to try to mitigate the impact of that reduced irrigation on our plants and trees, and doing their best to try to spread out the irrigation. But we're definitely gearing up. We're trying to obviously be proactive with current information. We did learn today that we were provided notice from the State Water Resource Control Board that they are definitely evaluating pre-1914 rights, which is the type of water rights that we hold as a city. And so
and I got the email that they are holding a workshop this week, or a roundtable with the recipients of that letter. Did you get that email as well?
I did, yeah.
And we're assigning someone to that meeting, I assume.
Yeah, it's not always at a convenient time, but we'll.
They don't care about that.
Always close to a council meeting, of course. But we're going to make every effort to get someone there to listen. And very well could be that we start to see curtailments in our water rights.
Okay,
That's not positive news, but
not surprising.
yeah, not surprising.
Yeah.
And likewise, we'll have to step up our efforts. But we do have the drop by event on Saturday, and thank you, Madam Chair, for agreeing to the table with us. And we'll be out there. I hope those the 250 kits that our public works staff are going to bring will probably go quickly, so we may not be there as long as
We'll be handing out buckets. It won't take long. Great, looking forward to it. Anyone else who wants to volunteer, please join us on Saturday. What time is that event and where, David?
9 to 1 at Cloverdale Plaza.
All right. And I think we're doing drive-bys too, right?
Yeah, I mean, do we set up on the stage, or do we just set up under the arbor there, so if folks want to kind of just pull in on a car and grab a bucket and go? That might be.
Well, I think in the interest of air quality, we should let them drive by.
Okay.
So on that note, unless there are any other announcements, we're going to adjourn to our next meeting, which is Monday, August 2nd, and at 5 o'clock, unless we change the date and time. Per council edict, we'll just put it that way. We're going to just put our foot down and not meet at 5 o'clock. So thanks everybody for all of your hard work and persevering during COVID. I mean, I know that while City Hall has been closed, our city staff have been working hard, taking care of our community, taking care of themselves, their kids, their elders, their pets, everybody else, everything that's needed to get done. So I thank you for all of your hard work and having an opportunity, hopefully not too long, to see all of you in person. And we'll see anybody who volunteers, we get to see you on Saturday. So hopefully we'll see you there.
Thank you,
With
Madam.
that, all right. Have a great evening, everybody.
Okay, bye.
All right. Bye-bye.